Hey guys, Ramen Indian Reaper here. It's a bright Saturday afternoon, summer, it's about to head into the cinema, and all I can say on this one is, there is no discharge in the war. Yep, about to head in to see 28 years later. So hyped for this. The trailers have looked absolutely fantastic. You know, I love 28 Days Later, and obviously, yes, there's so much hype behind this third installment, long-awaited third installment. You know, I have my fingers crossed that Boyle and Garland will deliver the goods. But there's only one way to find out, and that is to head in and get some snacks and get seated for 28 years later. So I've got my popcorn here and a red frozen Fanta, colour of the rage-infected blood, ready for the virus's long-awaited return. So, 28 years later, I'm back from seeing it. It is directed by Danny Boyle, and also written by Alex Garland. The first time the two of them have worked together since Sunshine. So obviously there was a lot of hype behind their reunion. There's also a lot of hype behind the franchise's long-awaited return, with this coming 18 years after 28 weeks later. And obviously they built up that hype in quite spectacular fashion, with that first trailer being one of the best trailers that I have seen in recent memory. It also broke records, being that this is like now one of the most viewed horror trailers ever. So, especially with this being the first of a new trilogy, the hype was real. But does it actually live up to the hype of the franchise's return? Let's find out. So the film follows Spike, a youngster living with his father, Jamie, a gifted hunter, and his mother, Isla, who is permanently bedridden, living on an island off the northeast coast of England, with the mainland having been fully ravaged by the rage virus in the 28 years since its spread began. One day, Jamie, believing Spike to be ready, takes him to the mainland on his first ever hunting trip. However, after the trip, Spike begins to learn some truths about the mainland and the world beyond the island he calls home, and so sets out on a long and dangerous journey to find a mysterious doctor long believed to have gone insane. So obviously, there were a lot of expectations for this, you know, especially after how fantastic their trailers were. There was a certain weight that it had to deliver on the hype behind this franchise's long-awaited return. And if you're expecting something in line with what the trailers have sold, yeah, prepare to be disappointed. Me myself, I was definitely not prepared for what this ended up being. It's definitely not the film I expected, but in saying that, I actually find myself really enjoying the richer, more interesting film that Boyle and Garland have cooked up. I mean, for one, this thing is, you know, taking big swings at like every single turn, you know, constantly wrong footing us. Just as we think we know what it is. Like, on the one hand, the first act is definitely where it's most like the trailer, and you very much expect it to keep in that vein with, you know, all this fast paced zombie action, which it delivers on big time. It's every bit as violent and intense as you'd expect, getting in some cool stylistic flourishes, particularly this recurring bullet time esque thing. But after that first act, it shifts into something slower burn, something quieter, something more akin to like folk horror rather than a big tentpole zombie film. And it's a move that, you know, into something I think much more interesting than the typical, you know, many years later legacy sequel you'd expect. I mean, for one, this thing is basically a melting pot for a whole ton of interesting ideas. Like on the one hand, there's this sort of post-COVID thing about, society rebuilding itself after the worst. There's also this like post-Brexit thing of, Britain's isolation and having to fend for itself. There's also a sort of like coming of age thing in there, but also a family drama of how illness, permanently impacts family dynamics. It's all of it is so interesting. All of it wrapped around this like slow burn folk horror take on a big budget zombie film. It is so interesting, and I think it's in these quieter moments that I think it really shines, getting in some actually quite touching scenes in there, which and I think it works really well thanks to the strong work from the talent on display, really building investment in those characters. Like, on the one hand, our sort of eye into the world is the character of Spike, played by newcomer Alfie Williams, who does a fantastic job. Like, considering, he's a child actor making his film debut, he fucking crushed it. He is so good as this youngster who, is in real time exposed to the horrors of the world as he grows from these initial experiences into as he basically comes of age. It's a really interesting arc, and Williams really sells it. You've also got Aaron Taylor Johnson as Jamie, his father, who's this quite masculine presence, very much trying to build character into Spike, but also he also gives off vibes that he's definitely knows a bit more than he's letting on, and I think Aaron Taylor Johnson really does a good job. Again, it's great how great he can be with an actual good script and not whatever the hell Craven the Hunter was. Jodie Comer also does a great job as Isla, really selling her confused mental state with her illness and the sort of quite hard hitting impact of her of her episodes. It's she is really good here. A notable highlight is Rafe Fiennes as Dr. Kelson, a very interesting character who you'd expect to go full on like scenery chewing psycho, but actually he's a much gentler and much more interesting character than you'd expect, and I think Fiennes plays it really well. In general, everything around him is really so interesting, with some real great world building. Also in how the virus evolved and these like different types of infected, especially the Alpha, the key antagonist of the film. He has quite an impressive zombie penis, I gotta say. But he is menacing and threatening throughout. Particularly a great scene showing those those angry, violent abilities on some soldiers. It is great stuff, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the two sequels build on the world building setup in this one. It's also a really well made film too, with some kind of interesting stylistic editing flourishes, particularly in cuts to like old medieval film. It's certainly an interesting choice. I did enjoy also the use of the Rudyard Kipling Boots poem. I'm glad to see it actually made it into the film. The score by Young Fathers, I think, was very interesting. It very much feels in line with the folk horror tone of it all, but also perfectly sells how volatile and intense the violence is. It's a really unique sound that works wonders for the world. But I think the sort of piece de resistance of this whole thing is the cinematography. Obviously, much has been made of this has been shot on iPhone. Well, shot on iPhones with, like, special camera rigs. And it's a choice that I think works really, really well for the film. Like, on the one hand, there's some real great shot compositions and real striking uses of color, but at the same time, there's some quite interesting texture to it that you wouldn't get from standard film or digital cameras. Like on the one hand, there's sort of fuzzy digital grain. There's also like sort of depth of field blur and some chromatic aberrations in there. It's a real striking visual choice that really works wonders in enhancing this gritty yet quite stylized world of the film. And really my one thing here, my one issue with the film is the end. Don't get me wrong, the final act have a lot of great stuff, a lot of really quite touching moments. But the very final scene is the one big swing that I think didn't land. It's such a bizarre tonal shift from, like, everything else in the film. It's so out of place, but yet it's so insane that I kind of can't wait to see how they build on it in the sequel. But yeah, they really should have ended this a few minutes earlier. Overall, 28 years later, defies expectations at every turn, delivering a quiet, slow burn take on the zombie genre, full of interesting and timely ideas, and some real striking stylistic choices. Out of 10, 28 years later gets a 9. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen 28 Years Later? What did you think of it? What do you make of it in comparison to the other two in the franchise? Are you looking forward to seeing where the two sequels to it build? And without getting into spoilers, what did you think of that ending? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.